What's this? Military-grade optics? Civilian ID expired? Open the whole bag! The young checkpoint guards dumped everything onto the metal table. The woman didn't flinch. She just stood there, silent, until a senior officer passed by. He froze when he saw the patch among the scattered items, then leaned in and whispered, "Stand down. Don't touch anything else. That's Ghost Recon." Her name was Evelyn Shaw, 42 years old, former Special Forces technician, now dressed in faded civilian work clothes, worn canvas jacket, carrying a dusty olive backpack. She arrived at Northwell Base checkpoint around noon, holding a temporary visitor pass to consult on a classified radar calibration issue. The young gate soldiers, Private Danner and Sergeant Kells, checked her ID and immediately became suspicious. Civilian contractor pass, expired 2 weeks ago. "Ma'am, we need to search everything. Open the bag completely." Evelyn didn't argue. She unzipped it calmly, no complaints, no attitude. Out came her tools: a compact soldering iron, digital optic calibrator, a folded military map, and a heavy logbook filled with technical notes. Sergeant Kells noticed the military-grade equipment and grew more suspicious. "Where did you get this gear? You're not cleared for any of this equipment." They began searching more aggressively, ripping through inner compartments, tearing at the lining. From a hidden pocket fell a folded cloth with a patch embroidered in gray thread. A wolf silhouette fading into fog. The Ghost Recon insignia. Evelyn said nothing. Just looked straight ahead with the patience of someone who'd been through much worse interrogations. What the guards saw was a suspicious civilian with expired paperwork and military equipment she shouldn't have. What they didn't realize was that they were looking at someone whose name had been erased from official records for reasons they couldn't imagine. The Ghost Recon unit had been disbanded after a classified operation went wrong. Officially, all members were listed as killed in action. Unofficially, a few had survived but chose to disappear rather than face the political consequences of a mission that had never happened. Evelyn was one of those ghosts, living in the space between official existence and complete anonymity. Right then, Colonel Mark Ramsey, the base senior officer, happened to pass by the checkpoint. He was heading to a routine briefing when he caught a glimpse of something that made his blood run cold. The Ghost Recon patch lying on the inspection table. He stopped immediately, stepped forward slowly, eyes fixed on the emblem he hadn't seen in over a decade, and whispered to the guards, "Stand down. Do not touch anything else. That's Ghost Recon." The guards looked confused, but they knew enough to follow a colonel's direct order. Comment I have if you've ever seen someone go from invisible to undeniable in an instant. Colonel Ramsey immediately pulled Evelyn aside into the interior checkpoint office, leaving the confused guards outside. Private Danner and Sergeant Kells whispered to each other, "Ghost Recon? That unit isn't even listed in current databases anymore. Why would a colonel care about some old patch?" Inside the office, Ramsey spoke to Evelyn directly. "We thought your entire team was killed in action during the 2012 ambush in the Kandahar province." Evelyn responded with steady calm. "That's what the official records say. But some of us walked out of that situation. We weren't supposed to exist after that." She placed her logbook on the desk. It was filled with encrypted notes, radio frequencies, and detailed drone interference patterns. Ramsey studied a recent entry that made him pause. "This interference signature matches the anomalies we've been chasing for 3 months. How do you know about our classified training operations?" Evelyn replied matter-of-factly, "Because there's a backdoor signal being broadcast to your training drones. Someone is deliberately interfering with your systems. It's not equipment failure." Ramsey leaned back in his chair. "Why didn't you come forward with this information sooner? Why the expired visitor pass and the unofficial approach?" Evelyn's expression didn't change. "Because the last time I tried to help officially, they erased my name from every database. Ghost Recon doesn't exist. I don't exist. But the threats to your operations are very real." The colonel quietly signaled to a tech officer through the window. "I need you to verify this handwriting against any legacy recon documentation we have. Look specifically for call sign Shadow 9. Meanwhile, Evelyn remained seated, completely calm, as if she'd been through this verification process many times before. 20 minutes later, the tech officer returned with a folder marked Classified Historical. Sir, the handwriting is a perfect match. This is definitely Shadow 9. She was the signal intelligence specialist who designed the counter-jamming protocols we still use today. Ramsey looked at Evelyn with new understanding. You built the systems that are currently protecting this base. I built the foundation, but someone has figured out how to exploit the weaknesses I couldn't solve 12 years ago. The colonel realized the full scope of what was happening. You're telling me that our current security vulnerabilities stem from incomplete solutions in your original Ghost Recon work. I'm telling you that whoever is targeting your drones knows exactly how Ghost Recon systems work. They're using our own techniques against you. Ramsey understood the implications immediately. If someone had access to Ghost Recon methodologies, it meant either classified information had been compromised or another surviving member of the unit had gone rogue. Who else from your unit survived? Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. I hoped I was the only one. But the signature patterns in your drone interference, they look familiar. The colonel made a decision that would change everything. What do you need to fix this? 48 hours of access to your drone control systems, and a small team of technicians who can follow instructions without asking questions. Done. Comment I understand if you've ever been forced to stay quiet until your knowledge couldn't be ignored anymore. Over the next 2 days, Evelyn worked with a closed team of 3 trusted technical officers that Colonel Ramsey had handpicked. She moved through the base's drone systems like someone who designed them personally, because in many ways she had. Lieutenant Graham, one of the younger techs, initially doubted her capabilities. Sir, are we really trusting our entire drone program to someone with an expired visitor pass? But after watching Evelyn work for 6 hours, his skepticism vanished completely. She installed counter-signal patches that blocked unauthorized access attempts. She reprogrammed fallback frequencies using encryption methods that weren't in any current manual. Most importantly, she identified the exact source of the interference. Lieutenant Graham whispered to Colonel Ramsey, Sir, she's not just fixing our system. She built half of it. The core architecture we've been using, it's all her design. Meanwhile, rumors spread throughout the base. That woman at the checkpoint last week? She's some kind of legend. Heard she was Ghost Recon. Thought that unit was mythology. Colonel Ramsey personally vouched for her. That doesn't happen. On the 3rd day, Evelyn's work paid off in the most dramatic way possible. During a routine training mission, 3 drones simultaneously lost GPS signal and began flying erratic patterns that would have resulted in crashes. But Evelyn's new protocols automatically engaged, maintaining stable flight until manual control could be reestablished. Without her intervention, the base would have lost $50 million in equipment and possibly injured personnel on the ground. That evening, Colonel Ramsey called a base security briefing with all senior officers present. 3 days ago, we nearly lost multiple aircraft to what we thought was equipment failure. It wasn't failure. It was deliberate sabotage using techniques specifically designed to exploit our systems. He gestured to Evelyn, who was standing quietly at the back of the room. Thanks to Evelyn Shaw, callsign Shadow 9 from Ghost Recon, this base is not only still operational, but now has the most advanced drone security protocols in the military. A major in the front row asked, Sir, Ghost Recon was disbanded over a decade ago. How do we verify her credentials? Colonel Ramsey pulled out a classified folder. Because I was there when her unit saved 47 soldiers during the Kandahar ambush. I was one of those soldiers. The room fell completely silent. Shadow 9 didn't just design our current systems. She risked her life to keep those systems operational under enemy fire, while her unit provided cover for a full evacuation. He turned to Evelyn and, without hesitation, saluted her in front of the entire command staff. Ma'am, it's an honor to finally thank you properly. But Evelyn's response surprised everyone. Colonel, I didn't come back for thanks. I came back because I recognized the attack pattern. Someone else from my unit is responsible for these intrusions. The room erupted in whispers. A rogue Ghost Recon operative was a scenario nobody had considered. Who? I have my suspicions, but I'll need more time to be certain. What I can tell you is that this won't be the last attempt. Ghost Recon was trained to be persistent. Colonel Ramsey made an immediate decision. Ma'am, I'm offering you a permanent consultant position. Full security clearance restored. Help us stay ahead of whoever is doing this. Evelyn considered the offer. I'll help you catch them, but I work alone, and I don't want my name in any official databases. Some ghosts are better left that way. Comment they deserved more if you've seen someone get their honor restored when they never asked for it. Evelyn refused any official rank reinstatement or permanent base assignment. I didn't come back for recognition or career restoration. I just didn't want another unit erased the way mine was. Instead, she returned to the base once a week, always in civilian clothes, to quietly inspect new drone systems and monitor for intrusion attempts. The technical team began referring to her simply as Miss Shaw, but their tone was one of complete respect. Outside the checkpoint booth where she'd first been searched, a small steel plaque was quietly installed on the back wall. In honor of the one who didn't need orders to protect us, Ghost Recon lives on. Evelyn sometimes paused there on her way out, but never stayed long. She preferred to work without ceremony. One day, Private Danner, the guard who'd searched her bags so aggressively, approached her as she was leaving. "Ma'am, I want to apologize for how we treated you at the checkpoint." Evelyn gave the smallest of nods. "You were doing your job. I respect that. But we should have known." "You couldn't have known, that was the point." 6 months later, the drone interference stopped completely. Whether Evelyn had identified and stopped the rogue operative, or whether her security improvements had simply made further attacks impossible, nobody knew for certain. But the base's security systems now served as a model for installations across the country. A year later, when new technical officers arrived at Northwell, they were told, "If you ever encounter a problem that seems impossible to solve, there's a civilian consultant who comes in on Wednesdays. Ask respectfully, and she might help you understand systems you didn't know existed." Today, military cybersecurity protocols across all branches use techniques developed by someone whose name appears in no official roster. Someone who chose to remain a ghost rather than reclaim a spotlight she'd never wanted. Be like Evelyn. Help people regardless of whether you get official credit. Protect institutions even when those institutions have forgotten you. And when they finally recognize your value, stay humble enough to keep working quietly. Because the most important security is often provided by people who prefer to remain invisible. Comment, "True honor is quiet," if you've seen real respect that doesn't need words. Sometimes the real heroes don't come through the front gate with fanfare and ceremonies. They come through checkpoints with ripped bags, worn notebooks, and names that were erased from official systems. Evelyn Shaw didn't come back for glory or recognition. She came back to prevent a catastrophe, because she'd already seen too many good people lost to preventable mistakes. In a world that forgets, she reminds us that just because someone's not in the system doesn't mean they're not essential to the story. The most dangerous assumption is that the person with expired credentials doesn't have current knowledge. The most valuable expertise often belongs to people who no longer seek official positions. And the most important protection comes from guardians who prefer to work in shadows. Look beyond the paperwork, respect the people who've walked away from recognition, and remember that the most critical knowledge is often carried by those who've chosen silence over spotlight. We need to protect our legends, especially the ones who'd rather be left alone. Comment, "She spoke through action," if this story changed how you see quiet protectors.